Let's rewind the clock a little bit back to last year's Alimakine. When Symboli Rudolf won it dominantly, his jockey Yukio Okabe did not have any post-race interview. The reason was simple. He was scheduled to fly to the US for other ride. Pressed for time, he left for the airport immediately after the race. Therefore, interviews could only be conducted with other jockeys. Isn't it strange to not interview the winning jockey, they complained. But this was Symboli Rudolf. For the team, interviews were meaningless. There was only one reason to enter the Alimakine: victory. That forefinger raised in celebration was a message. Symboli Rudolf was about to unleash an impact on Japanese racing unlike anything before. On the other hand, Kazalaki Ace finished second for his last run, but they were satisfied. We beat an incredible horse once and finished second to him. That's enough. There's no shame to acknowledge Rudolf as a once-in-a-lifetime horse. The team accepted the Emperor's reign and chose to step away with grace, to retire before burning out completely and leave the stage for the future is a respectful choice. And just as the crowd celebrated the arrival of the Imperial, just as Kazalaki Ace retired in satisfaction, in a forgotten corner of the scene, another horse, the same age of Ace, Mr. CB, chose to continue. Even if it means staining the honor of the Triple Crown, even if it means being stripped of every pride himself, he chose the difficult path, the path to reclaim everything that had been taken from him, the path of solitude, the path to his tragedy. This is what it means to be a Triple Crown winner. This is the glory of the Triple Crown. This is the weight of the Triple Crown. At the beginning of the year, both Triple Crown winners set their sights on the Tenno-sho Spring. This would be their final confrontation. However, in the trial race, Mr. CB lost again, and not to another elite contender, but to a horse that never won a single Group 1 in his entire career. In stark contrast, Symboli Rudolf cruised to victory, effortlessly, clinical. As it is shown on screen, it was not a competition but a public training section. People were looking at this and pointing to CB. Is this really the horse who's supposed to challenge the Emperor? A horse that can't even win a Group 2. Storm of criticism fell on CB. Some voices directed at jockey Masato Yoshinaga. If you knew the race couldn't be decided by a late kick, why not abandon that plan and fight through the pack? If you don't truly love this horse, stop clinging to your own stubborn ideals. But how could Yoshinaga not love CB? He did not fight back against the criticism. He was never a man of many words. Yet deep within him, it was precisely because he loved CB that he carried a level of anxiety others could not imagine. But he knew Mr. CB's weakness had been shown. He was always a horse who raced from the back. His style was bold and reckless, sometimes stuck in an impossible position and unleashed a surge that was nothing but dramatic. He was dazzling, unpredictable. He was once so unparalleled to the point people forgot this is actually a risky, bold strategy that should not work. But Symboli Rudolf scoffed at such ideas. Late start, disadvantage, comeback. This word does not exist. When Rudolf's camp discussed tactic, the question was never how do we win. It was, do we just win or do we win overwhelmingly? Victories didn't need to be beautiful. Victory didn't need drama. Victory only needed to be victory. It needs to be destined, unquestionable. No one loved Mr. CB more than Yoshinaga. He was a man who refused to bend himself to the world. He was a man who's with the soul of a poet. But it was this man who, in this race, made his decision. In the two previous confrontations, Mr. CB had gambled everything on his trademark, and both times he had failed. Fighting Symboli Rudolf the same way as before would never lead to victory. To admit defeat and change completely? For a horse who was also a Triple Crown winner, a horse who had once stood as the peak of thoroughbred, that is unacceptable. The Triple Crown horse who conquered races with his closing kick, to abandon that strategy meant abandoning his pride, his dignity, his identity, his very existence as a racehorse, and yet, that lonely man made his choice. He chose to abandon all remaining dignity for one reason only: defeat Symboli Rudolf. For a fellow Triple Crown winner, this was a path that should never been taken, because if he lost this way, he would lose everything. He would be stripped of every glory and forever be remembered in humiliation as the weakest Triple Crown. But this was the weight of the Triple Crown. This was the way he chose to go out with. Back in the Kikasho, on this very same race course, Mr. CB had ignored Yoshinaga's signal, accelerated relentlessly on the uphill, and forced his way to victory. That time, it was instinct. But today, this decision carried the will of the entire camp. He commanded CB to accelerate on the uphill, abandoning the pride to defeat the one and only rival. When the two Triple Crown champions running side by side, the crowd erupted, cheering, screaming, witnessing history. But to Symboli Rudolf, this challenge was just tedious. Just before the race, his jockey Okabe had already predicted the ending. Last time in the Kikasho here at Kyoto, I won by slipping through the inside. Doing that again would be boring. So this time, I will wait for CB to pass me and then pass him from behind with our sprint to crush the final pride of a Triple Crown who believed in his late kick above all, to shatter his dignity completely. That was the strategy. The Emperor was merciless. Anyone dare to challenge his throne must be punished. The question was never who will win, but how to win. In the new era, there was no longer a place for the king of the past.
鈴鹿小判か外からはシンボリルドルフが来る馬体を合わせたミスター CB は交代したミスター CB 交代内から西のライデン突っ込んでくる外をついて桜凱旋ゴールまであと200に入ったシンボリルドルフ先頭さあゴールまであと200五冠のゴールまであと 100m シンボリルドルフさあ懸命に食い下がったのは鈴鹿小判外から桜凱旋を追い上げた桜凱旋2番手に上がった先頭はシンボリルドルフゴール2番手桜凱旋ですシンボリルドルフ新山以来の五冠馬誕生となりました
The great Triple Crown winner, the horse expected to surpass Shinzan. All the praises were given to Rudolf. Just not long ago, those titles belonged to him. The once glorious Triple Crown champion fought by abandoning everything and scattered for the future. But he set a precedent for every Triple Crown that followed. Challenge the impossible. Do not cling to honor. Do not choose only easy, guaranteed victories. There are countless ways to make a record look beautiful, but that is not for the Triple Crown. The Triple Crown means advancing toward the impossible, to feel both the glory and the unbearable weight of that title. And now, that weight has fallen upon Symboli Rudolf. Symboli Rudolf was originally scheduled for an overseas campaign, but injury put a stop to that. After a long layoff, he returned to the Tenno-sho Autumn.
シンボリルドルフ400を切ったそしてそのうちに控えているのは西のライデンさらには若尾ライデンオーストをついてぐんぐん追い込んできたのがこれがウィンザーノット広がっている坂を上がってくるそして追い込み勢の中からは外をついて赤い帽子ギャロップダイナが突っ込んでくるさあ先頭争いはどうだシンボリルドルフか苦しいかウィンザーノットオーストをついて一頭突っ込んできたのは日本ピロミアさらにギャロップダイナシンボリギャロップダイナ出てゴールイン
Many people are familiar with the famous line, "There's no such thing as absolute in racing, but that horse is absolute." I found that phrase oddly amusing because I'm fairly certain it originated around this very Tenno show. Of course, the long layoff was a big factor. Okabe also made a misjudgment during the race. It is also worth mentioning, in racing, the standard practice is to first condition a horse for stamina at its optimal distance, and then sharpen the speed. Rudolf's previous race was 3,200 meters. To then drop suddenly to 2,000 meters is very unusual outside of Japan, but that was the expectation placed upon the Triple Crown. They would challenge the very best under conditions that favor others and still on top. That same weight meter CB carried now passed to Symboli Rudolf. But before continuing with Symboli Rudolf, let's first turn our attention to this year's classic. This season, 2 stars took the spotlight. One of them was Miho Shinzan, the masterpiece of Shinzan himself. Not only did Miho Shinzan secure the double crown, the only classic he did not contest was the Derby due to recovery. He was scheduled to face the Emperor himself in the Alimakine, the masterpiece of a former Triple Crown stallion, now a Double Crown winner, set to challenge the reigning Triple Crown. Across this year, the sport was nothing short of extraordinary, yet the true center of this classic centered around Serious Symboli. Needless to say, Symboli Rudolf and Serious Symboli both belong to Symboli Farm. And since mentioning Symboli Farm, we need to talk about the owner behind them, Wada Tomohiro. On one hand, he produced a generation of elite runners, actively introduced advanced training concept and breeding knowledge back to Japan, and constantly pushed for international competition. It is a fair statement to say he had a big influence for the sport in Japan. But on the other hand, he was also an infamous owner. Generally, there's a balance of power between owner, trainer, and the jockey. Wada, however, frequently crossed that line, intervened directly in management, and did not accept opposition. By the time Symboli Rudolf rose to prominence, Symboli Farm had reached its absolute peak. You would say that no other horse on the farm could train alongside Rudolf. No matter how talented the partner, Rudolf would effortlessly draw clear within a furlong. As a result, the only solution was to rotate 2 or 3 horses, each taking turns to keep pace with him. Even so, countless horses were thoroughly outclassed. Countless except one. Only one horse who could truly rival him, Serious Symboli. In a public workout, these two engaged in a head-to-head race, and in the end, it was Serious Symboli who reached the line first. Of course, it was only a training session, but it was enough to demonstrate how good Serious Symboli was. When Serious Symboli prepared for the classic season, in a pre-race, he crossed the line first, only to be disqualified for intervening. The jockey's mistake angered Tomohiro. Although the trainer managed to calm him down, the very next race ended in a nose defeat, once again attributed to the jockey. This second failure completely put everything on fire, demanded Jockey Kado to be replaced by Yukio Okabe. On the surface, the request was not unreasonable. However, Wada's repeated boundary-crossing intervention ultimately enraged the whole camp. You only focus on the mistake, ignoring all the effort we put. If he's that unhappy, then just take the horse elsewhere. When this was heard by Wada, it basically became a shit show. Just 10 days before the next race, Wada suddenly transferred Serious Symboli to another stable. The original stable now lost all the prize pool money from Serious Symboli, reacted with open hostility. Other trainers also began refusing the horses from Symboli Farm altogether. The situation escalated to the point where the higher-ups were forced to intervene. As a result, Serious Symboli skipped the Satsuki show, never facing Miho Shinzan. Officially, the camp cited the horse was not feeling well, but many believe it was to cool down the controversy. In the end, Wada was the first to compromise. Let Okabe ride the next race. After that, Kado can return. But the story did not end here. In the next and first start with Okabe, the horse won comfortably, so all the pressure fell onto Kado Kazuhiro. It was at this worst possible time. Serious Symboli began showing signs of concern of his front leg, but the next race was none other than the Japan Derby. To make matters worse, heavy rain turned the track into heavy ground. Say no more, let's just begin the race.
東証サミットその内からブラスクスキー叩いています真ん中ババロ中央レオティンゴ外から力三ワイス
Under such immense pressure, Kado made a shocking decision. He guided Serious Symboli far to the outside, extremely wide. Given the condition of the ground, many had already begun swinging wide to avoid the inside. Therefore, after the start, instead of grouping inward, the entire field drifted outward. Kado's decision was bold to say the least. It was so wide that even the trainer began to freak out. Two things worth mentioning. Miho Shinzan did not attend, but given the extreme track condition and the level of competition, even had he run, I don't think he could win the derby. The other thing is, Tomohiro Wada did not attend such an important event. When asked why he was absent, he said, "I'm sick." What a jerk. What a...
さあ先頭争い須田ホークが内から須田ホークが内からあっという間に来た須田ホークはどうだ先頭かシリウスシンボリ叩いているシリウスシンボリ叩いている須田ホークシリウスシンボリシリウスシンボリそして内からはストーンナウラの差をついてきたさあ須田ホークは先頭かいやシリウスシンボリ出たシリウスシンボリ出たシリウスシンボリ出た一馬身リードシリウス先頭シリウスシンボリが先頭2番手須田ホーク粘っているそのままいまして一頭追い込んできたスクラムダイナ追い込んで2番手に上がってきたさあ先頭はシリウスシンボリスクラムダイナシリウスシンボリそして須田ホーク粘っている先頭シリウスシンボリシリウスシンボリ今ゴールイン
In the end, Serious Symboli won decisively. In the post-race interview, when Kado was asked how he managed to win under such pressure, he said, "Thanks to my wife." Just so you couldn't tell, he is a jockey famous for staying calm under pressure. What a heart he got. Thus, the path diverged. Serious Symboli was scheduled for an overseas campaign. Symboli Rudolf would take on the Autumn Triple Crown, and Miho Shinzan awaited him at the Arimakine. At the Japan Cup, Rudolf entered as an overwhelming favorite. Even foreign journalists could clearly sense it this time. This year, Japan carried absolute confidence, and the result was unquestionable.
シンボリルドルフが来たシンボリルドルフが先頭シンボリルドルフロッキータイガー外からロッキータイガー2番手シンボリルドルフ先頭シンボリルドルフが先頭ロッキータイガー追い込んできたロッキータイガー内ラストイからザ・フィルバートが2番手かシンボリルドルフ先頭で2馬身3馬身のリード2番手にはザ・フィルバートロッキータイガー猛烈な2番手の競り合いになった先頭はシンボリルドルフ2馬身のリードシンボリルドルフ堂々と駆け抜けたゴールイン
2 years ago, his camp deliberately abandoned a 2-year-old G1 to run him here on the same day at the same course as the Japan Cup, purely to send a message to the foreign media that day. This horse would conquer the Japan Cup soon, and now without controversy, Symboli Rudolf finally claimed the Japan Cup. All that remained was the Arimakine, his final race in Japan. Standing before him was Miho Shinzan, the Double Crown winner. Fans were wondering, how much further can Miho Shinzan push the emperor? Before the Arimakine, Okabe said this to the public: "If you are a true racing fan, come to Nakayama." The media tried to create suspense to suggest that others had a chance. After the race, Symboli Rudolf departed for overseas, yet the internal conflict between the trainer and the owner ended in a complete split. Ultimately, the end of the emperor was just like Mr. CB, humiliated, shattered, and thus the wheel of time turned once again. Today, in a field overgrown with weed, lies the grave of Mr. CB. No flower crowded its stone. His name faded from his own grave. This is the grace of a triple crown. This is the end of their epic. This is the price of his brilliance. Silence sings a memory of the past, a memory about the glory of the Triple Crown, a memory about the weight of the Triple Crown. The new era brought by the Triple Crown came to the end as they step away, just as an age passed, just as an age yet to come.